Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome, welcome. We are going to get kicked off here shortly. In the meantime, do you guys want to just drop in the chat where you are calling in from today? We just have a few more people rolling in, trickling in, and we're going to get started here shortly. Welcome, welcome, everybody. I am going to go ahead and share my screen shortly. And we're going to get started on this webinar. We are 1 minute past the hour. Excellent. Cindy, you are calling in from Arizona. All right. Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. If you could just drop into the chat, please, if you can see my screen. I'm going to pull up the chat here so I can monitor that as well. All right. Thank you, Carla. You can see my screen. That is perfect. All righty. We are going to get rocking and rolling. So, welcome once again, and thank you for being here today. I know your time is very valuable, and I want to try to make this time worthwhile for you. What I'm planning to cover today is straightforward. So, if your shop is relying on phone calls, estimate requests to grow, this is what we're going to be talking about. And obviously, specifically, we're going to be walking through what is working for Google Ads in 2026. We're going to be looking at actual strategies for driving phone calls, for getting estimates to your shop with Google Ads. Obviously, there's a lot of variation in situations. I don't know your exact situation, if you're a metro shop, rural shop, but this is some of the basics. So, just to set a few expectations before we get rolling, this webinar is not built around vague ideas, trendy language, surface level advice. This is built around content to try to give you clarity. I want to cut through the noise. I want to cut through all of that and help this session to give you some focus, to help you make smarter decisions, obviously, to help you avoid some of the common mistakes and try to understand Google Ads at a deeper level. So, ultimately, as we move through this, my big goal is to help you have clarity when you walk away, not complexity, not hype, just some direction on where you should be going next with your Google Ads. All right, just a little bit of housekeeping. Try to give this your full attention. I know you guys are busy, you've got lots going on. Um, but what I want you to do is try to pay attention to spot that one idea that's going to matter most for your shop, your market, your current stage of growth. Probably not everything I say today is going to be perfectly fit for you, but there's going to be one thing. So mark that down. What stands out? What feels like it needs to be changed? We're going to try to work through this in a sequence. So each section builds on the next section. Now, just a little bit about me, in case you don't know anything about me, and that's perfectly fine. And probably you don't, but to give you a little bit of context, I grew up in an auto body repair family, and I spent many years in the industry running the family shop. So this space to me is very familiar. I still feel at home when I go into the shop and I smell the body filler and I smell the paint. That still feels like home to me. And obviously that has shaped how I think about marketing for body shops. This has to be practical. It has to make sense for the way shops actually operate. It has to lead with opportunities. And then that led to me creating Body Shop Marketing. And Body Shop Marketing's focus is on helping collision repair shops grow with strategies built specifically for this industry. And just a few fun things that I've got to do along the way. I wrote the complete guide to internet marketing for auto body shops. Fun little fact. Also, I've gotten to speak at a few different events here and there. And I've also worked closely with organizations like SCRS, some state associations out here in Oklahoma, Texas, kind of in my neighborhood. And of course, now today we support shops all across the country. So if you're a shop, I'm just going to throw this out right here, right now. If you're a shop that realizes you really need help getting stronger visibility, better lead flow, more intentional, maybe Google Ads strategy, you can go ahead and scan that QR code. Basically, that takes you to a link where you can schedule some more time to have a deeper conversation with me about this. All right, what happens the moment someone has an accident? They want answers. They want direction. They want to know who to call, where to go, which shop feels trustworthy. And that decision process starts almost immediately. It can't wait. They have to start making this decision right now. And in that moment, people typically are not doing a deep dive investigation. They're not learning all about auto body repair. They're not learning all about auto body shops. They're just looking for the clearest, the fastest, most credible option in front of them. And obviously, insurance is also playing a factor in this. But this is one of the reasons that visibility matters so much. Because when there's this urgency, the attention span is short. So we really need to ensure that we are grabbing their attention. Obviously, the shop that shows up first, that looks legitimate, builds trust, feels trustworthy, it has a major advantage before the phone even rings or before that conversation even begins. So when people talk about ranking on Google, a lot of times they're thinking about things like maybe 10 blue links, but that's really not what most people are looking at anymore. When your customer, what your customer sees can be a mix of different results when they're searching. It can be sponsored results, it can be the local business listings, it can be map results, and it can be the regular website results. And that mix can change depending on what they searched, where they are, what device they're searching from. And that is why this matters so much for a body shop. You're not just trying to win one ranking position, you're trying to be visible in a search environment that is crowded before someone ever gets to the regular organic listings. And Google is pretty direct about this part of it. Local visibility is influenced by a few different things: relevance, distance, and popularity. So this is not just about having a website. It's also about how strong and complete your business profile, your business presence looks in Google itself. So I would say the takeaway right here is if your shop is only thinking about organic SEO or AI engine optimization or only thinking about ads, you are probably looking at too small a piece of the pie. Your customer is seeing the whole search result, and that's really where the battle is won. So this is really the point I want to make here. A shop can do great work. They can take care of their customers. They can have a solid reputation, but they still get overlooked online, not because they're a bad choice, not because they're a bad shop, just because they're not the first clear choice someone sees. And that is an important thing to think about. Online, people are reacting to what's in front of them. What stands out, what feels visible, what looks easy, what looks trustworthy. So this slide right here is not really about saying quality does not matter. Of course, quality matters. That's the bare minimum. quality has to be there. It's about saying that quality alone does not guarantee attention. And if your shop is not getting seen, then somebody else gets the call, somebody else gets the click, somebody else gets a visit. And that's where Google Ads comes in, because Google Ads gives you a way to start showing up when and where that visibility matters most. Here's another part that we tend to not think about. Doing nothing feels safe because there's no new budget that we need to spend. There's no new setup. There's no big decisions. But that does not mean there's no cost. It just means the cost is hidden, because if people are searching in your area and Google is showing local results and ads in those moments, then not being present means you are giving up chances you could have competed for. And I'm not meaning to try to be dramatic or to scare anybody. I just mean, if you're not showing up when someone's looking online, then somebody else is more than likely to get that attention. Some other shop. Somebody else is going to get seen first. Some other shop is going to get compared first. Someone else is going to get that first phone call. And that's just the cost that we need to consider. Not just money spent, but opportunities that we are missing and we're never getting that shot at. And that leads us into the bigger idea. Google Ads is not magic, but it does give you an opportunity to stop waiting and start getting in front of these people that are searching. All right, now that we've talked a little about the problem, let's talk about an idea. Because the question is not just what is going wrong online. The real question is, what do we do about it? And that's what this whole next section is about. And I would say this big idea is simple. Your shop just needs the right kind of visibility in the moments that matter. Let's talk about how Google Ads plays into this and how Google Ads can actually fit into this. So let's talk a little bit about how we think about Google Ads. And this part is not in my slides, but I'm going to throw this in here anyways, because this is very important. And I think if you don't take anything else away from this webinar, I want you to remember this. Google Ads, the only reason Google Ads exist is to drive revenue for Google. So that might sound terrible. It might sound like I hate Google. I don't hate Google, but we just need to remember, if these campaigns are not set up correctly and run correctly, Google will take as much of your money as they can. They want your money. So be extremely careful. This is just something that I think is so key. I don't know if I threw this in at the right spot because it's not in my slides. But anyways, just remember that Google Ads is a terrific tool, but it needs to be managed correctly, or Google will burn through your money without you getting many results. All right. I'm going to get off of my high horse on that one. And let's talk a little bit more about where Google Ads fits in this whole picture. What role does it have in this? Google Ads helps your shop get in front of people who are already looking. So that's basically where it fits. It's a visibility tool. It is not what fixes a bad customer experience. It's not what makes for weak follow-up. It's not what makes a shop trustworthy all by itself. But what it does is it gives your shop a better chance to be seen in those moments that matter. Then everything else after that still comes back to your shop. The way you answer the phone, the way you handle the estimate, the way people feel when they deal with your team. So when we're talking about Google Ads, during this webinar, I want you to think about it that way. It's not the whole engine. It's just part of the system. When most shop owners think about Google, they are probably still picturing the old version in their head where we type something in and we get a few website links back. And whoever ranks the highest wins. And unfortunately, that's not really the whole picture anymore. Now, the page can include paid ads, local business results, map results, organic results, and which mix shows up changes based on what you searched, where you are, what Google thinks is most relevant locally. Results in search and maps are driven mainly by relevance, distance, prominence. Search ads can be eligible to appear when someone's search is similar to your keywords. So for a body shop, the big takeaway is this: the search results page is more competitive than it used to be. And visibility is not just about ranking your website anymore. You have to understand where Google Ads fits on that page, because organic is only one part of what people may see. So if we kind of strip away all the marketing language, this is what Google Ads does for a shop. First, it helps you show up when somebody is searching for the kind of work you do. The keywords are what help determine when and where your ad can appear. So the whole idea is to line up your shop with relevant searches. Secondly, it lets you focus on the area you actually serve. Now, that's important for an auto body repair shop because most shops are not trying to pull work from everywhere. You want work from your local area, whatever that might be. It might be 10 miles, it might be 50 miles, it might be 100 miles, depending on your situation. And Google's location targeting lets advertisers choose your city, your zip codes, your counties, or even a radius around your location. Third, it gives people an easier path to contact you. Call assets can show your phone number with your ads, and people can click to call your business directly or go to your website. And the last piece is measurement. Phone call conversion tracking can help you see which keywords, which ads, which ad groups and campaigns are driving phone calls, which is a big deal since calls are one of the main ways a shop turns that interest into an estimate and then into a repair order. All right, let's get into what actually has been changing here in 2026. Because Google Ads is constantly changing. It does not work the same way it used to. The way campaigns are built, the way Google matches searches, the way automations work, the way results get shaped, this has all been shifting. And if you're still thinking about Google Ads the way a few years ago, I'm sure we probably all have some of these assumptions that are not accurate anymore. So in this section, I want to walk through the big changes that matter most and what they mean for a shop trying to use Google Ads platform well today. Here is one that body shops need to start paying attention to. They are called local service ads. I can't guarantee that they are available in your area, but Google is starting to roll out local service ads to auto body repair shops. Local service ads had their origin in the home services industries. And Google has been running them for the local service ads for the home service industries for many years. And now they've started rolling this out to the auto industry. So I would say definitely check into this to see if they're available in your market and see if you can run these. Because these local service ads, they show up high on the Google search results. And they also get the little blue check mark showing that you're Google verified. Also, one thing about local service ads that's different than the regular Google ads is the pricing model is different. rather than being the normal pay per click setup, this is a pay per lead setup. So here again, I would recommend check in to see if local service ads are available in your area. I wouldn't necessarily think about this as replacing my Google ads. The better question that I think we should be thinking about, should this become part of the mix if it's available? So definitely explore this option. Here's another big shift in Google Ads. And this is an area where we can get a little bit sloppy. A lot of advice out there makes it sound like with your keywords, you can just go broad, trust the system, trust Google to figure it out. And that is not how we approach it. For a new account with a smaller budget, we want really tight control. That usually means starting out with exact match keywords, because this helps give us a cleaner picture of what's actually coming in. Then if you want more volume, we can open things up when it comes to your keywords. Maybe you open it up to phrase match, but even there, you still have to watch what shows up, because not all that traffic is actually good traffic. And let's just say competitor searches, for an example. Competitor searches can look nice and useful on paper, and they can look like you're maybe stealing some leads from the competitors, but typically these are not turning into real leads. And you definitely do not want to start out your campaigns with broad match. Broad match is something you earn your way into if your tracking is solid, if you have real conversion data, if the campaign has enough history and it has its own budget, then maybe broad has a place. I put a big, heavy maybe in there, but definitely not before that. So the shift is not that keywords stopped mattering. It is that the strategy is less about stuffing in every possible keyword variation and starting out with control, watching your search terms, building your negative keyword lists, and expanding that carefully when your account has actually earned it. All right, let's go on to the next section. How do you set this up the right way? I'm going to try to give you a simple version. Obviously, I can't touch on all the main points here today, but I want to give you a version where hopefully you can take a few things away. Let's talk about the structure behind a campaign to generate leads for your shop, to generate opportunities for your shop. And that's what I'm planning to break down here in the next section. All right, let's talk about probably the biggest one in any Google ad campaign. If this one's off, everything else is going to be so much harder than it needs to be. So before we start talking about bids, keywords, ad copy, anything else, we really need to know what a real lead actually is. For us, this starts with verified phone calls. There may be a few exceptions to this, but the majority of your leads from Google Ads are going to be coming in through phone calls. You don't want to count a conversion as every little action someone takes on your website, every little click, every soft conversion that makes the numbers look nicer than they really are. We want this campaign learning from real lead signals. And that's why the tracking setup matters so much. If your primary conversions in your campaigns are messy, Google is going to be optimizing toward messy outcomes. And then people start saying, the campaign's not working, when really the problem is the tracking was feeding it bad information the whole time. So the goal here really is simple. Get your tracking set up clean first. Make sure you have the right actions are being counted the right way. And don't trust any performance data until you know your conversion foundation is very solid. Okay, step number 2. And here is another area that accounts can really start getting messy. People either build everything too broad, so the campaign has no real structure, or we can swing the pendulum too far the other way and make it so fragmented that nothing gets enough volume to tell you anything useful. What we really want is a structure that makes sense. And this usually starts with separating the campaigns by service line. Just think about it this way: collision is not the same as hail. Hail is not the same as glass. If those are different services, under normal circumstances, they should have their own campaigns so you can control their budget, you can control the messaging, and you control the performance. Then inside of those campaigns, you keep your ad groups tight. You don't want just random piles of keywords, not just one giant bucket. You want to have tight themes that actually line up with the intent behind the search. So let me give you an example. If someone searches hail damage repair, you want the themes to line up with that intent. And the other thing is not to overbuild, just because you can. The more complicated the account is, does not automatically mean it's a better account. If your structure is too chopped up, you can end up actually starving parts of the account before they ever have a chance to learn anything useful. So the goal is not complexity. The goal is clarity. Every campaign should have a job. Every ad group should have a purpose. And the whole account should be easy to understand when you look at the structure of it. All right, step number 3. And this is another area that we can tend to overcomplicate. When we start thinking about keyword strategy, we can tend to start thinking the answer is just more keywords, more variations, more stuff packed into the account. And that is not really the goal. What we want to start with are the searches that show real intent, the kind of searches that actually line up with the services your shop wants more of. So instead of trying to jam every possible variation into the campaign, the better move is to start out with the core terms that matter most, keep them really tight, and pay close attention to what the campaign is actually matching to. Because honestly, the search term reports tell you just as much as the keyword list does. The search terms is where you're going to find the junk. The search terms is where you're going to find the surprises. And that's where you're going to start shaping the account into something cleaner. So the strategy here is not to be lazy with your keywords, but it's to be very intentional. Start with the right themes, stay close to the search intent, and let the account earn its way into broader coverage. If you would like access to the keyword list, we have a simple keyword list there on the QR code. I think that takes you to a Google Doc. You're definitely welcome to utilize that if that brings you any value at all. All right, let's talk about step number 4, match types. And this is where discipline matters, because if you get loose too early on this one, you can waste a lot of ad budget before you really understand what the campaign is doing. So the way we look at match types is pretty simple. You want to start with control, and that usually means exact match first, especially on a newer account or a smaller budget. This gives you a tighter read on what is actually coming in and helps to cut down on that junk traffic early. Then if the campaign is in a good place and you want to open things up a bit, phrase match can help expand the reach. But even then, you still have to really watch it because more volume is not automatically better volume. And broad match is definitely not where you start. Even though Google is going to tell you to start there, you do not want to start with broad match. Broad is something that you test later very carefully. When your tracking is solid, when the campaign has good and real conversion history, and you have enough data to make that decision, then you can potentially start looking at broad. So the goal here is not to use every match type just because it exists. The goal is to give you the right level of control for the stage that your campaigns are in. All right, let's talk about step 5. Responsive search ads. So once somebody sees your ad, the question is pretty simple. Does this ad feel relevant? Does this ad build trust? Is this ad worth clicking on? And this is why responsive search ads still need real strategy built behind them, because we're not just throwing headlines into this box and hoping that Google magically builds a great ad. The copy needs to match the intent of that ad group. If the ad group is about collision repair, the ad needs to sound like collision repair. If it's about hail, it needs to sound like hail repair. It's pretty simple, but it's an easy place for us to get lazy. And this is also where real trust points matter, not fluff, not vague marketing language. We want to have actual things a customer might care about, like certified repairs, lifetime warranty, insurance assistance, or whatever is true for your shop. You want to pull out those things about your shop that make you better and unique over the competition. And I would say another thing here, don't let Google bully you into bad copy just because it wants a higher ad strength score. The ad strength score is not something you need to live and die by. You want to ensure that your ad copy is speaking to what the prospect needs to see when they're searching. Your goal really on this step is to have an ad that speaks to the customer and fits the search. So let's not sacrifice any clarity just to have Google ad strength happy. Step number 6, smart bidding. This is an area we can really get ourselves into trouble quickly. Smart bidding is not bad, but it's only as good as the data you feed it. So if the tracking is messy, if the conversions are not set up right, or if the campaign is still too new, then handing everything over to the automation is usually not a smart move. It's just handing control to bad information. And that is why we do not treat every campaign the same. Sometimes a newer campaign needs to start in a more controlled place just to keep spending in check and make sure the tracking is actually doing what it's supposed to. Then once your data is clean and the campaign has enough conversion history, that is when conversion-based bidding starts to make more sense. The other big mistake here is that we can be tempted to get impatient. We might go in and change a strategy. We wait 3 days. We don't like what we're seeing. And then we go in and we change it again. And then we wonder why the account is unstable. We have to give the campaigns room to breathe. So the real point here is not to let Google take over. It is to use automation at the right time with the right data and with enough discipline, not to keep yanking the wheel every few days and changing things up. Step number 7, landing pages built to convert. So you can have the right keywords, the right ad, the right targeting, and still lose leads because the landing page is not doing its job. Obviously, the first thing that matters is the message match. If the ad promises one thing and the page feels like something else, people are going to disappear. They're going to fall off. So the landing page needs to feel like a natural continuation of the ad. After that, it needs to be very clear. What does the shop do? Where do they work? Why should I trust them? What am I supposed to do next? That's why you want to keep the page very simple, local, obviously mobile friendly, because most of this traffic is coming in from someone on their phone. So if the offer, the phone number, the location, and the call to action are not easy to see right away, that's a huge problem. Another big problem is that there's friction. The more work someone has to do, the sooner they're going to leave and not call your shop. So you want obvious calls to action, forms that are easy to finish and fill out, pages that build trust. Because at the end of the day, the landing page, it's there to turn interest into action. You want every single person that lands there to take action. Step number 8. This one is one of those things. It's not flashy, but this one matters a lot. Negative keywords are how you stop campaigns from drifting into traffic you never wanted in the first place. Because if you're not actively telling Google what to avoid, it will absolutely guaranteed find ways to spend your money on searches that look close enough, but are not actually what the shop wants. And this is where junk starts to creep in. You have things like job seekers, do-it-yourselfers, search it, cheap searches, mechanical, brakes, engines, transmissions, you name it, out of the area traffic. The important thing to do here is negatives are not just something you set up once and forget about. This is ongoing. You keep going in and you check the search terms. You check to see what Google is actually showing your ads for. You are looking for patterns and you keep tightening the account. So when people ask how you keep a campaign cleaner over time, this is a big part of the answer. It's not just adding keywords, it's adding the right negative keywords, the right exclusions, so your budget is actually going to real opportunities. This one's a huge one. If you're running campaigns, definitely, please work on your negative keywords. All right, let's talk a little bit about what Google Ads will not fix. Google Ads can do a lot, but it can't do everything. It can help your shop show up. It can help you get clicks. It can help create opportunities for you, but it doesn't fix the stuff behind the scenes if that stuff is broken. If your landing page is weak, that's going to hurt you. If the message doesn't match, that's going to hurt. If the trust points are missing, that's going to hurt you. If your SOPs are pretty clear on that, the page has to match the ad, feel local, credible, make the next step easy. Same thing with your tracking. If the conversion setup is messy, then your campaigns start learning from bad information. And once that happens, you're optimizing basically towards noise instead of real leads. Verified phone calls come first, and broken tracking is one of the biggest reasons an account looks like it's failing. And then also, there's the shop side of it. If your calls are getting missed, if your calls are going to voicemail, if your follow-up is slow, if the customer experience is weak, Google Ads is not going to magically cover that up. Google Ads can help create opportunities for you, but your shop still has to do the rest. All right. How do we know if this is actually working? How do you tell if Google Ads is actually working for you? Because this is honestly is where it's easy to get lost. We can look at clicks, we can look at impressions, we can look at whatever numbers Google Ads is giving us, but that is not always the same as knowing whether the campaign is doing its job. So in this next section, what I want to break down a little bit is what we actually pay attention to and what matters most and how to look at performance without getting distracted by the wrong numbers. So this is where it's easy to get distracted by numbers that sound important, but they don't actually give us the full picture. They don't give us the full story because a campaign can have lots of clicks and still not be doing its job. So when we look at performance, we want to look at the numbers that actually help us judge whether this thing is actually working. Spend matters, obviously, because we need to know how much it is costing. Your CPC, which is cost per click, that matters as well because it tells us what we are paying to get traffic in the door. But that's not where we want to stop. What we really care about is what matters is what happens after the click. Are we getting leads at a cost that makes sense? Is the conversion rate healthy of those leads? And if we can get far enough downstream, what is the cost per actual job? And that's where the conversation really starts getting useful because the point is not just to buy traffic. The point is to buy the kind of traffic that actually turns into real opportunities that then turn into real repair orders that turn into real money in the bank. So, yes, clicks matter, CPC matters, but if those numbers look fine and the leads are weak, then we are definitely not where we want to be or we need to be. Let's talk a little bit about the full tracking setup. Because if our tracking is weak, then our reporting gets muddy, our reporting gets weak, and our optimization is really basically impossible. So when we talk about a full tracking setup, we're not just talking about dropping one tag on the site and calling it done. We're talking about building something that can actually tell us where good leads are coming from. And that means the call tracking has to be set up right. The landing pages have to have call tracking phone numbers. The right numbers need to be in the right places. And enhanced conversions need to be turned on inside of Google Ads. And Google needs to get a clean signal back when a real lead happens. Because as we said before, the goal is not just to get more traffic. And we don't want to just send that goal back to Google. We want to know the goal is which campaign, which keyword theme, which setup is actually producing the calls that matter. And that's when the data starts getting useful. And once that tracking foundation is solid, then you can actually start trusting what the account is telling you. So, what does a healthy Google Ad account actually look like? I'll tell you this much, it's not perfect numbers every day. It's not huge swings every week. And it's not a dashboard that looks exciting, but does not have anything useful going on there. What good looks like in a campaign is this. The tracking is clean. The leads are more relevant. The junk starts to get filtered out. The cost per lead starts moving in a direction that's obviously making sense for those services. It also means the account feels more stable. You're not constantly reacting. You're not chasing random spikes. You're not rewriting the ads every 3 days because a number has you nervous. A good account usually starts looking cleaner before it starts looking impressive. And that is an important point to remember because early on, progress can look like better search terms, fewer bad leads, cleaner tracking, stronger message match, more confidence in what the campaign is actually doing. Then over time, that starts turning into a more efficient lead flow and better decision making. So when I say what good looks like, I don't mean some magic number that applies to every shop. I mean an account that's getting more intentional, more stable, more useful. That's what good looks like. Most campaigns do not fail because Google Ads just doesn't work. I'm sure there's some exceptions to that. They fail mostly because the setup is weak, the tracking is messy, or maybe the account is not getting managed. Sometimes the budget is also too small from the beginning. That happens as well. Just let's say, for an example, you're in a large metro area that has 5 million people around you, and you're going to put a $500 ad budget towards your Google ad campaign. That budget is mostly just going to get burned. It's too small. Also, sometimes the targeting is too loose. And that's like your keyword matches, broad search versus phrase. Sometimes the keyword strategy opens up too fast. And a lot of times campaigns are just learning from bad conversion data. So it is optimizing toward the wrong thing before I ever had a fair chance at it. And then, of course, there's the management side of it. We might make a few changes and then we panic after a few days and we go in and we make a few more changes and we never really let the account settle and learn long enough to start actually telling us anything useful. So when a campaign fails, it's usually not for one dramatic reason, one huge reason. It's usually probably a stack of smaller mistakes like bad tracking, loose traffic, weak message, not enough negative keywords, too much reacting, those kinds of things. And this is why structure really matters so much. If you build the foundation right and manage it with some discipline, you give the campaign a real chance to actually work. All right, let's talk just a little bit about if you were going to be putting this into motion. This is kind of the basic rhythm that I would follow over the first 30 days. First of all, you get clear on what you are actually launching. Not necessarily every service, not every idea you have, not every possible campaign. Start with the services that matter most and that have the best chance of producing real opportunities. Then, before you get cute with anything else, make sure your tracking is right. Because if that part is broken, the whole first month gets harder to read and lots easier to misjudge. After that, we start launching something. Let's remember tight targeting, tight keywords, clean negatives, solid ad copy, a landing page that actually matches, nothing bloated, nothing sloppy. And then once it's live, the first month is not about panicking and changing everything every few days. It's about paying attention. Are the search terms good? Are the calls real? Is the targeting tight? Is the lead quality actually making sense? Those first 30 days will then help you figure out if the foundation is solid. And once you know that, then you can start scaling what is actually working instead of just trying to force growth on top of a messy account setup. All right, I'd like to just zoom back out for a second. We've covered a lot of ground over the last 47 minutes. So before this just turns into a pile of information, the question I want to let with you is, what actually stood out to you? What felt familiar? What exposed a weak spot? What made you realize something probably needs to be cleaned up? Because the goal here is not just to sit through this webinar and nod along. The goal is to actually walk away with a clear idea than you had before. Maybe you had a big takeaway that your tracking is not as solid as it needs to be. Maybe your campaign structure is messy. Maybe it's that your traffic has been too loose. Whatever it is, just pay attention to it. You don't need to fix everything at once. Usually, the best move is just identifying that first thing that matters most and getting that right. So I would say this is a good place just to think through what we've just talked about and take away your one idea that you're going to go put into practice. All right, this is my last slide. If at this point you want more clarity, let's schedule a conversation. This is not a high pressure sales call. I'd be happy to sit down with you and have a conversation about where you're at and if there's any opportunities that you can help your shop grow. So if you're interested, feel free to scan that QR code and schedule some time with me. I thank you for your attention and time. Appreciate you taking the time. If you have any questions for me, feel free to throw them in the chat. I will hang out here just for a few minutes yet. If there's any questions, happy to take them. Um, Alrighty. Well, I appreciate your time, guys. And Cindy, can you share an example of a great landing page? I don't have any with me right at the moment. Cindy, if you could shoot me a quick email, I can definitely get you an example. Please shoot me an email. You've got my email, I believe, Daniel at bodyshopmarketing.io. Shoot me an email and I'll get you a good example for you. Awesome, guys. Well, I appreciate you taking your time today. I hope you had a little bit of value from this. And you bet. You take care. God bless.